Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon over there in Europe. And welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. Today I have Alex here with ElasticScale, and without further ado, we would love if you can introduce yourself and your company.
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm the founder of ElasticScale. We're an AWS partner, and we help companies reduce their AWS bills. So that's why we partnered with NachoNacho to see a lot of people are spending too much money on AWS. I see it on a daily basis, and it makes me kind of sad. So I have a personal mission to actually reduce those costs. So that's why I'm on.
That's great. Yeah, we're all about saving people money here.
Yeah.
I guess what are some of the most common AWS cost traps that companies overlook?
Yeah, so I think like one of the things you have to be aware of in AWS is it's often like death by 1,000 cuts. I think you have a good saying. We don't have the same saying in Europe, but it's like you have a cost there, you have $10 there, or maybe you have $100 there, and all of it tends to kind of like add up to a lot of costs in the end, right? So I think the most costs we see are actually related to storage, so database storage and compute. And there's also a component of not knowing how to optimize it, right? Which is one of the other things that people don't want to touch it. Maybe to break something as well, right?
Yeah, at what point should people start actively managing their cloud costs? What point of the company's growth do you really see it start to get out of control?
Yeah. So the optimum answer would be from the start, right? But we also know that it's something that ties into how much time do you have to do it. But more importantly, it's very important that it's tied to your unit economics. So let's say you're building a $10 million a year company, you're making a healthy profit. It's not a problem if your AWS costs are $10,000 a month, But if you're building a $20,000 a year company and your AWS costs are $10,000 a year, then it is not in perspective anymore, right? So you should make some changes to do that. So it's also there's also some benchmarks that float around along how much percentage of your revenue it should be.
And where do you typically see companies come to you with this problem? It seems like a lot of people kind of kick the can down the road per se, then realize that there is a big cost center there and they should be saving money when they're not. Then they reach out to you, of course. When does that typically happen? And obviously, they should be doing it from the beginning. But when do they realize there's a problem? Reach out.
Yeah, so there is often already when you're doing $1,000 a month, often you can already save money on AWS, right? By giving them commitments or right sizing your compute. If you're under that, then it's often very hard to find those savings. Maybe you can bring it down to $600-700 a month, but I think from the $1,000 a month you can actually have a ROI on it, because that's also one of the things you have to factor in. If you have a developer and he's going to spend 3 or 4 days working on those costs and he brings it down with $200 a month, you're not going to earn it back, right? So there also has to be a bit of more pragmatic way of looking at reducing costs, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I guess what AWS services tend to be the biggest cost centers that create like those big surprise bills that hit you when you least expect them?
Yeah. So we see this happening in data transfer, which is everything that really scales with your traffic. Because if your traffic is unpredictable, or you have, for instance, a lot of bots, then you have high CloudFront costs all of a sudden. You really haven't served any more real customers. But since AWS is purely usage-based, these things can really spiral out of control if you don't keep them in check. It can also come from misconfigurations in your accounts. And if you have things misconfigured, then all of a sudden things can balloon up. One of the other things can also happen is you have, for instance, a certain amount of Lambda functions that keep calling each other, and then they will happily execute all of them, but you have to pay the cost. So most of it is coming from these things that can explode together with your traffic, and that you haven't put any limits on at that point.
I guess what are some of the warning signs that your cloud costs are getting out of control? Is there any red flags that you can notice right away?
Yeah, I think like one of the things I think there's a good benchmark that we use. It should be around 8 to 10% of your revenue. right? Which we say depends on your business. Maybe if you have an AI business, it might be a bit higher. But I think there is a good say to look at that as a flat percentage and see, well, is this still making sense for my business? One of the warning signs as well is that what we often see is that people are surprised by the bill, right? And they only are like, oh, well, I remember it being a bit lower. Like 3 months ago, it would be $6,000. Now it's 12, right? So this also has to do with responsibility, and we'll come back to, I think, in the later of the interview, like who's responsible for these costs. That will also create less surprises. So you have to have a sort of a little process around that to make that work, I think, a bit better.
Yeah, and how does AI play into all this too? Obviously, token usage is becoming a big cost center for people. Do you see AI leading to a big increase in these costs?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like we work, we specialize in SaaS companies, but we also work for some other verticals. And SaaS companies always been like super comfortable with like 80% margins on their compute, right? Which was basically putting some more servers in there, some more databases, and that would work. And you could scale it down when it wasn't in use. But with AI, it's heavily reliant on GPUs, right? You have to have them stand by all of the time. They're expensive to rent. Demand is driving those prices up again. So it makes that these things are less predictable than you would like to see them. So there's also a lot of data involved, right, which makes everything more expensive as well. So I think the core principles that underlie that AI wave are different, and I think we're still getting used to like how we need to price that to our customers. It is very important that you budget for it, you tag it, so you can see what's driving what's spent, right?
I guess what are the biggest mistakes teams make when deploying this AI infrastructure?
So one of the things I see happening a lot is that people are using the most expensive model for everything, right? So it means that they're like, okay, this model must be a lot smarter, and then the only thing, for instance, they're doing is they're making a summary of some text, right? So the token price is much higher for that model. The output tokens are much more expensive. So one of the things I think people should do is actually move away from using a single model and initially putting in some things so you could switch models. So there are things like Open Router, which you can talk to, and this might deploy or actually use other models under the hood. That means that, let's say, like last time, the newest cloud model, I was able to use it on Thursday, but I wasn't able to use it on Friday. In that sense, you can also switch models in that sense. So you should really think and see about your specific use case, like what model works here best, and you should also test that properly. So you shouldn't just default to the latest and greatest model, but you should always look like, what am I trying to achieve here, and what model would be best here, and what model would be the most cost effective here.
Yep. I guess you don't need a Ferrari to go pick up groceries.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, right? Yeah.
I guess how else can companies scale AI initiatives without seeing their cloud costs spiral? Do you have any other tips around that?
So one of the things I think would help a lot, and this is something that I see also not specifically tied to AI, is to get some more visibility in the things before they go to production. So often developers, if you have a small development team and you don't have any DevOps, they're often not really worried about the cloud costs, right? It's not going to be taken out of their salary any day soon, right? If you do that, maybe it would help a lot, but maybe all your developers would leave at that point as well. Yep. So you should be a bit careful with that, not take that advice. But I think like one of the things you want to do is ask some critical questions on, again, like, is this the right model? What will this cost? Can we make an estimate of like how long are, for instance, our tokens that we're putting in? How much traffic are we expecting to that? So if you're able to do that, then maybe you will come up with a different pricing model, at that point in time, because we all know that it's heavily subsidized right now, the token usage, right? So you should also like really think beforehand, like, will this be sustainable if the token price goes 10x? Will my model still work? So the thing we're seeing across the board is that often when these things are already in production, already running in staging or customers already using it, it's often already a bit too late to plan around that. So these discussions should maybe happen before you actually bring these things into production, which we're also not very used to when we were building SaaS, right? We would just add some features, and like the marginal cost of adding a feature would be near zero, right? You just add some development capacity and customer could use it, you could price it, but your infrastructure cost itself wouldn't really rise. So with AI, that whole playing field is changing, right? So the model that how we build software, I think, should also change.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of costs already kind of going up, and the go-to-market's definitely to get you hooked on their models. And I think a lot of people aren't really forward thinking. They just kind of build what they build around the models that they like the most today, and you build their entire infrastructure around it. But as those prices go up, you're not going to be able to decouple from it so easily and save money that way. It becomes a whole different project there, and you get that sunk cost, if you will.
Yeah, and the model that you're using today might not be the model that you're going to be using in 8 weeks or 6 weeks, right? And so I think there's also a good step to say, like, okay, so will this model serve us in the long term, or how can we switch away from this model should we not be able to use it due to jurisdictional rules or cost prohibitive measures? As long as it's free lunch, everybody's happy, but it still needs to hold up in a real business case, right? At some point.
Yeah, well, as I say, the free lunch is never free too, so you got to be careful of that. So if you inherited an AWS environment tomorrow, where would you look first for savings?
Yeah, so there are a couple of like simple pragmatic things that you can do if you find these things that are very pragmatic. We think is also, for instance, shutting down your staging and development environments outside office hours. Saves around 80% on monthly costs. You can have it enabled again in a link, because often we see in the middle of the night nobody's using those environments, and AWS you pay what you use, right? So shut those things down first. Can already save a bunch of money. I would initially also look at the data persistence. So often customers using a lot of big databases, which maybe they can optimize the queries, or in that sense make the database smaller. And then same goes for storage of S3. A lot of people are storing a lot of stuff in S3 that they either never need again, or they are storing in too expensive tiers. So there's a lot of savings you can get from there. But most importantly, we see people running 30% of their bill with cloud stuff that they're not using. So when we just ask, like, hey, can we maybe delete this? Do you know who spun it up and who's responsible for this? Yeah, it was a guy. He worked here 5 years ago, and we don't know him anymore. So maybe he still has access. I don't know, but maybe since it's costing you $400 a month. Oh yeah, then maybe definitely we should get rid of it. We're not sure what it's doing. So I think first thing would be like make an analysis, like, is something really in use? And you can also get very beneficial results from using AI on that.
Yeah. So it sounds like these costs could really get out of control as you're really growing your company and you're adding new team members and people are coming and going, and people kind of forget who opened what environment.
Yeah. You can imagine, right? Because often, and we're maybe also like, if you look, because I was CTO at a company before, we also do not measure the productivity of a developer on how much infrastructure cost they're saving, right? We're just looking at, like, are they delivering what's on the feature board or in Jira? Are they doing that right? And that's what's keeping customers happy. But the whole infrastructure thing, it's like kind of unsexy, right? It's there, it's the engine of the company, and if it fails, you have a big problem. But no developer wants to work on it unless they're like kind of forced. So I think that's also part of the problem.
Yeah, true. They like to build. They don't care about the cost necessarily. They're thinking, like, I got to get this feature out there, or I'm excited to build this thing. We'll deal with everything else later.
Yeah. And then later never comes, in my opinion.
Yep.
But it's good for us, maybe. I don't know.
That's good for you guys. Keeps you guys in business.
Keeps you off the streets, which is nice. Yeah.
Nice. So what percentage savings do you think companies could really expect from AWS optimization efforts? Say they call you today, What are you guys seeing across the board in terms of some of the clients you've helped?
Yeah, so on average, it's around 30%, which we can save. Sometimes it goes up to 50%. Let's say we have an unoptimized environment that's been running for 3 years and nothing has really changed. So far, I think we are around for around 18 months. We just hit advanced tier partnership, and we've cumulatively saved like around $1 million in AWS spend for our customers. So it can be big, it can be small, but it also depends on the type of workload. So if there are any optimizations opportunities. So I'll give you an example, like what can't we optimize, for instance, because we get some discount on AWS on some services, but on all services, but also on some services we get extra discount. One of the things, if a customer has a lot of data transfer out and it's just a part of their business model, so maybe they do a lot of video streaming and they can't move anything away from it or something like that, we can't get a discount on data transfer, so we're just stuck with that. But often we find that there are significant savings possible, but you just have to put in the time and effort to actually put them in place, which is the scary part as well.
I guess what's some of the what kind of initiative produces the most immediate results? So you mentioned earlier a couple low-hanging fruits in terms of like where you could optimize. Which one do you think would deliver the fastest results? Would that be like shutting down environments that aren't used, or you mentioned closing operations that are running like 24/7 that you don't really need?
Yeah. So I think like one of the first things, and like if you could only like pick one and gets the fastest ROI, is really gain an understanding of what's running in your cloud. Are you actually using it or not? And are you using it to the best of its abilities? So the thing there is that we often see that a lot of stuff is over-provisioned. And that also comes down to who's responsible for it. So if you are a developer, right, and I'm a developer right now, and you tell me, well, Alex, you can build this feature and you can put this server on and you put it on there, you're gonna put in a big server, right? Because you don't want to get called in the middle of the night when the thing runs out of memory. You don't really care it's under provisioned or over provisioned. You just don't want to get called and deal with it. So it also starts, I think, with like seeing what are you using and where are you able to gain actually results by just deleting the things that you're not needing, right? Because we see that can at least save it like 10%, without any like operational hazards or anything.
Yeah. So who really does own the cost management here? It sounds like everyone kind of passes the buck to the other person. Is it the CEO as a management? Is it the CFO? Because presumably they care about how much money we're spending. CEO is probably too busy most of the time anyway, until he gets that monthly report or even quarterly report in some cases. The DevOps teams, not every team can afford a DevOps, depending on like what stage they're at. So who really owns it and at what stage?
Yeah, so I think like if you have a DevOps or a DevOps team, they need to own it. They have the tooling, and I think it belongs in their sector. We see that you have a DevOps team, it's around 10, 15 full-time developers. You need one at some point, and then maybe you don't have enough work for them at that point, so it might be a part-time role. But anything before that, it's often engineering. But the problem is that the problem that we see is that the incentives are different. Like I said, developers are caring about features. They don't care about the cost because it's not being taken out of their bill. The CFO, if he gets the bill, he damn well pay it, because it's otherwise it's problems for the whole company, right? So, and they don't have enough knowledge to see the breakdown and where they can save costs, because AWS just tells you like, hey, this is what costs you the most money, right? So the thing here, I think, also is tied into how do you make engineering part of that, and that just means making it part of the process and going back to stories. Where in linear you would have maybe an acceptance criteria or in Jira, which would normally have like a customer can use it, or the acceptance tests are written, etc. But one of the things that would also be like, what will this cost us, and why as well. And then having cadence And I suggest like a monthly cadence where you talk with the development team, like, what can we do about these AWS costs? Is there anything we can do? Have we put any reservations in place? And then again, you can have AI help you there as well. But as I always suggest with these things, it's not good to have a shared responsibility, because that in like practice, it means that nobody's responsible.
Yeah.
So you have to at least get one developer. That's what I suggest, that you feel is the most comfortable with AWS, or wants to become the most comfortable with AWS, and make him or her responsible for the cloud costs. So that way you can go there and say, hey, well, you take a look at it, you pencil in some time with him, and he also gets some incentives to bring it down, right? And it doesn't have to be a monetary incentive, but maybe you can give him a free AWS certification course that he can take, etc. So I think for us in practice, we see that putting it in engineering works best if you give them the tooling and the time to do it. And if you don't give them that, then they're also not going to do any good.
Yep. And it's kind of up to the CEO to kind of push that on them too, because you obviously want them to be able to be incentivized to actually manage their own costs rather than just run away building features, which like we talked about, they just love to do.
Yeah. And if you give it to the whole engineering team, what you'll also run into is that it will become a shared responsibility. So again, no responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you put it to one member of the dev team, then often you'll see that these people rise up because they get responsibility for these cloud costs as well. They don't feel it in their wallets, but they do feel the pressure from being singled out, so to say, and being kind of responsible for that. And they can expect questions on that as well. So they'll read in, they'll do some research, and they'll probably also find some good savings that they themselves can implement.
Yeah, make it part of their deliverables too. So when they're reporting on what they do each month, they're able to talk about some of the cost savings that they might have produced as part of their role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And then eventually you get a DevOps team as you grow as a team, and then you have people that are specifically trained and built to do this very task.
Yeah, and the time when you do that, it also depends a bit on the opportunity cost. And because if you have your developers working on features, especially now with Cloud Code, they're very, very productive. But often that productivity goes down the moment they start working on something they're uncomfortable with, like AWS or Google Cloud or something like that. So you have to factor in that as well. So if they can, let's say, we work one day on a feature for you, you might be able to bring this into the market. You are able to realize extra revenue. But if they spend a day working on DevOps, then there's no additional revenue, but maybe a bit of a lower bill. But these two things, if you put them next to each other, often having them working on features is more productive and makes them more happy. Because all DevOps people are like full-time DevOps people are very unhappy. I can show you.
Yeah, and it's good that they're thinking about that for every feature that they're building as well too. It's just part of their DNA at that point that they're thinking about the cost side as well as they're building. Then you come back to it later and realize that you have a big cost problem. So I guess how often should organizations review their AWS spend and architecture?
Yeah. So I think like the first thing you want to have is you want to have some budgets in place, because we often like 60 or 70% of our customers have no budget in place. So it's just that the budget is whatever the budget credit card limit is or something. That's not a good limit to have, actually. So in that sense, get some budgets in place, because it requires you to think in, so what are we willing to spend on this, and how variable is this, and how can we drive this down? Then the next step, I think, if you do this, you should do it every month to review it. But the next step also is to build some more visibility into it, because if you have a lot of resources, it's very hard for you to see like where's the money going. So I'll give you an example, like EC2, it's virtual machines, but it's going to throw all of these things on a heap and say, well, you have 6 T3 larges and you have 10 M6X larges. It's going to put everything on a heap. So it's very hard to see like what business unit is driving what costs. So I would also start with a tagging strategy where you say, well, every resource for instance, every business unit or every tenant or everybody that you want to be able to drill down gets its own tagging. So that way you can also see like what part of the bill you can see in Cost Explorer, like maybe you have a tenant that you're only charging 100 euros an hour, but they're costing your company $600 or $700 a month in AWS spend. So then you either need to lower those costs or bring it more in line with the unit economics of this customer. So the thing is also about monthly, but doing it just monthly, I think it's not enough. You also have to gain more visibility in what's driving these costs and why.
Yeah, and more importantly, build it into the process like we talked about earlier. So the developers thinking about it as they're building features. So it's just naturally built, the cost optimization's built into everything they do. So I guess what's the first thing attendees for this webinar can do today, actually tomorrow, to get on their cost optimization right away? Besides calling you guys, of course, because
I think you don't want to call us. That's also perfectly fine, right? If I could give you like one thing you can take away is just assign one person to be responsible. That's going to make a whole lot of difference for a lot of companies. You're gonna lose the feeling that nobody really cares about it but your credit card company, and you have somebody to talk to in the team, and they're gonna feel like empowered to pick it up. That's gonna make the most difference, I think, because I think often it's not really like a technology problem. It's more of a people problem, like who's responsible, who's picking it up. I think it's very important to assign responsibility. One person, talk to him maybe every month, plan a monthly session and say, well, how are we doing? Are we trending down? Are we trending up? And then you might also get a bit of better feeling like what's driving these costs. So you can price it into your product as well if you should need to change the pricing of your product.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess any other big takeaways that attendees today should consider before they call you guys? What are some key services or value offers that you guys have or benefits that you want to make clear to people?
So for everybody attending this WebEx, you can send me an email at alex@elasticscale.com, and we'll give you a totally free cost audit. So it's a 50-point check, and then we'll check your whole AWS account for cost savings, and then either you can implement them yourself, or maybe your development team doesn't have any time, and then we'll pick it up for you. So I think that's a good offer, a sensible offer for people that don't want to touch AWS or afraid they're going to break something, right? Which we want to prevent.
Yep. And where can they learn more about your company too?
They can visit our websites at ElasticScale.com. And we have a dedicated page for FinOps, like how do we do FinOps, because it's purely results oriented. We get half of all of the savings that we realize. So there's no upfront fee or anything, but we work together for 12 months and then we get half of the savings that we realize. So if we don't realize any savings, no fee, which is also good.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate our partnership. We also have this offer available in the NachoNacho B2B SaaS and AI marketplace, or you can go to elasticscale.com. Alex, thanks again, and looking forward to growing our partnership together.
Thank you, Andy, and talk to you soon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. Great job.